A new report from Punchbowl News says that Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariff.
But I imagine you do when it comes to tariffs.
We look at all the things that could impact consumers and customers.
The first sign of collapse didn't come with a headline or an official announcement. It came in the form of silence. At Amazon's Seattle headquarters, the elevators no longer ferried late-night strategy teams to their planning sessions. The once bustling war rooms on the 14th floor, where global shipping routes were constantly recalibrated in real time, fell eerily quiet. There were no leaks, no rumors, just a subtle shift. Top executives began quietly canceling future meetings in Seattle. Then came a shock. Abruptly and without warning, Amazon's global leadership announced it would relocate its entire headquarters outside of the United States. This wasn't symbolic. It wasn't the opening of a satellite office or expansion of a regional hub. It was total. Every component, logistics, finance, executive leadership, strategic planning, was moving abroad. The trigger, tariffs. But not just ordinary tariffs. A full-blown, politically charged, economically devastating trade war had broken out, prompting retaliatory measures worldwide and forcing multinational corporations to reconsider their foundations. In the middle of the chaos, America's largest e-commerce giant made a decision once thought unthinkable. It decided to leave completely and permanently. But Amazon wasn't the starting point. It began with a policy shift. In January 2025, a newly elected U.S. administration launched what it called a patriotic trade revolution. Sweeping tariffs were imposed on a wide range of imports, from Chinese electronics and European pharmaceuticals to Canadian raw materials. One move was particularly disruptive: the elimination of the de minimis rule. This rule had allowed low-value goods to enter the U.S. duty-free, critical to Amazon's business model. It enabled millions of third-party international sellers to offer low-cost goods like electronics, textiles, and accessories through Amazon's platform, sold on razor-thin margins and delivered via a hyper-efficient logistics network. Without the rule, these goods were suddenly hit with crushing tariffs, as high as 145%, depending on their country of origin. Overnight, Amazon's pricing edge vanished. Foreign competitors, beyond U.S. jurisdiction, gained a clear advantage. Their goods were cheaper, their shipping less restricted, and their margins preserved. Amazon, meanwhile, found itself caught in the crossfire of global geopolitics. In Seattle, executives ran the numbers again and again. The outlook was dire. If nothing changed, Amazon was on track to lose more than $13 billion in profits over the next 3 years. So they changed everything. The plan was called Project Silver Compass. Its mission: find a new host nation, move Amazon's global headquarters, and redraw the blueprint of global e-commerce from scratch. This wasn't theoretical. Within weeks, a relocation task force, led by former global logistics chief Vincent Xiao, began assessing options. The criteria were strict: low or no tariffs, favorable tax laws, political neutrality, cutting-edge infrastructure, and stable governance. For countries made the shortlist: Singapore, Ireland, Canada, and the United Arab Emirates. Singapore offered speed, efficiency, and a laser-sharp focus on commerce. Ireland had a proven track record of welcoming corporate giants with minimal friction. Canada brought cultural familiarity and flexible trade arrangements. The UAE, meanwhile, presented a fortress-like environment: no corporate tax, political insulation, and a clear invitation to multinational leadership. Quiet negotiations began behind closed doors. Amazon sought tax incentives, data law exemptions, and accelerated residency processing for tens of thousands of staff. One proposal stood out. The UAE reportedly offered a sweeping deal: 10 years of zero corporate tax, a sovereign data agreement, a custom-built global logistics hub in Dubai, fast-tracked relocation for up to 40,000 employees and their families. Back in the U.S., tensions flared. Word leaked that Amazon was piloting a controversial feature: tariff surcharge disclosures, showing consumers exactly how much trade policies were increasing product prices. The White House reacted furiously. President Trump's press secretary accused Amazon of undermining national interests, and congressional allies threatened new antitrust actions. A private call between President Trump and Jeff Bezos reportedly ended with a blunt warning from Bezos: "If you make it impossible to operate here, we will operate somewhere else." Then silence. No more public statements. No more press briefings. No future meetings scheduled in Seattle. Then, on May 6, 2025, Amazon confirmed what many had feared. It was relocating its global headquarters abroad. The economic shock was immediate and brutal. Wall Street initially stumbled, with Amazon stock dropping 5% on the news. But recovery followed quickly, as analysts predicted that long-term gains from tax breaks and tariff-free operations could ultimately outweigh the disruption. In Seattle, however, the impact was devastating. Tens of thousands of employees were suddenly faced with hard choices about relocation. The city's housing market, once buoyed by Amazon's massive footprint, began to dip. Small businesses that had thrived on Amazon-driven foot traffic shuttered their doors. City officials scrambled to address an unexpected tax revenue shortfall that left budget plans in disarray. Meanwhile, Amazon was already executing its transition. Executive teams began relocating to Dubai. Data infrastructure was being mirrored in Abu Dhabi. Engineers were undergoing intensive training in Gulf labor laws, Islamic finance, and local regulatory frameworks. Fulfillment centers in Bahrain and Oman were being upgraded with solar arrays and autonomous systems. Amazon was evolving into a stateless, borderless, post-American enterprise. Other multinational corporations took notice. If Amazon could disentangle itself from U.S. political and economic volatility, why couldn't they? Apple had already started lobbying for tariff exemptions on Chinese components, warning in an internal memo that continued restrictions could lead to a major restructuring overseas. Tesla filed for new tax treatment in Indonesia, where it's building a battery facility outside U.S. jurisdiction. Even Walmart began reassessing its global sourcing model to safeguard against future disruptions. Amazon's departure wasn't just a relocation. It was a declaration of corporate independence. And for the United States, it was a sobering wake-up call. Washington was now forced to reckon with the consequences of weaponizing trade without a long-term strategy for the fallout. The tariff policies designed to punish China, revive domestic manufacturing, and assert geopolitical leverage had instead created a power vacuum, one that eager foreign governments were already rushing to fill. In Dubai, Singapore, and Dublin, tech ministers were quietly celebrating. They knew exactly what had happened. America's most powerful company was no longer a client to the U.S. government. It was theirs. And they were preparing for more. Amazon's new global headquarters was already being branded as a digital special economic zone, a state-of-the-art campus where AI, robotics, and quantum logistics could be developed free from American regulatory constraints. Universities near the new HQ were announcing joint research labs. Regional governments were slashing bureaucratic red tape and investing heavily in infrastructure to accommodate Amazon's future. The company's workforce began to fracture. Some teams moved abroad. Others were retrained. A new global talent pipeline was emerging, drawing engineers, economists, and designers from Asia, Africa, and Europe to spearhead Amazon's next evolution. Back in the United States, anger was mounting. Senators called for formal investigations. Labor unions accused Amazon of betrayal. Consumer advocacy groups demanded federal action to stop what they labeled tax-driven offshoring. But it was already too late. Amazon had left. In its wake, a larger question remains. What does it mean to be an American company when the United States is no longer the best place to operate? In today's rapidly shifting global economy, tariffs are no longer just economic tools, they're geopolitical flashpoints. And with this move, Amazon has just lit the biggest one yet. Thanks for watching.